everybody. This is Jessica Moore with Inflectra. It's great to have you with us today on a Wednesday. We're really shaking things up at the last week of the official summer in the US. We have with us today Kirk Walton. We're delighted to have him joining us from Minneapolis. He has over 20 years of experience in the IT consulting services industry, starting as a Lotus Notes consultant in '99, which another interesting fact, Kirk, my husband, is also a Lotus Notes consultant in 1999, because there were two of you.
Not many of us left, yeah, that's for sure.
That's right. His experience includes consulting, recruiting, marketing, and consulting services leadership. Kirk is incredibly passionate about the people aspects of the IT industry and about building team and helping organizations and individuals find the perfect fit with one another. He established the recruiting and marketing practices at TAP QA, a national consulting firm exclusively focused on QA, test automation, and DevOps. And Kirk, can you tell us a fun fact about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me. For one, when I heard about Tipsy Testing and just the name alone, I was like, this is maybe something I'd be interested in attending. And then you said, hey, we'd love to have you as a guest. I'm like, okay, I'm definitely in for that. We certainly have shared a drink or two, I think, at conferences and everything that we see over the years. And hopefully we'll have a day pretty soon that we can all get back and see each other in person again. The virtual world has been great, and I know I'm super excited about Inflectra and excited about speaking there. I think it's going to be a great event. You have assembled a wonderful roster of speakers, and for anyone that's watching this, if you haven't signed up yet, by all means, get out and sign up. There's going to be some great talks, and hopefully the next time we do Inflectra, we'll be able to see you guys all in person and everything. But yeah, excited to be here. As far as fun fact, I don't know if anyone that's watching this has ever seen the movie Drop Dead Gorgeous. It's a movie. It's a very dark comedy. It's from probably about 1999 or so, and it was filmed here in Minnesota, where I'm from. And it's kind of a look at like the small town beauty pageants gone horribly wrong, and it's just a kind of a caricature of that and everything. So I was an extra in that movie. So I can't say I have an IMDb credit, although I have tried to make an IMDb credit for myself on the page of Drop Dead Gorgeous. I don't know if it actually is still there. I think it was there at one point. They probably got rid of it, but so I'm the blurry furniture store shopper in the back of one of the scenes. So that is my my claim to fame, I guess, or my one movie credit, if you will. So
I love it. Maybe we can have a virtual watch party sometime.
I will watch that movie anytime anyone is willing to watch it. It's funny because like my cousin who's from Chicago, she's like, all right, she's a year younger than me. She's like, I've literally known you my entire life, and it took you 20 years to tell me that you were in my favorite movie of all time. Because evidently it's like your favorite movie of all time. I'm just like, Facebook wasn't a thing in '99, so I couldn't just show off to the world, hey, here it is or whatever. But yeah, so
nice. I don't know that we've had an actor on the show before, so this is pretty cool.
You still haven't, but that's
we had an almost musician. Remember Paul Gazzarfi was on stage for one song of one band, remember? I forget the...
Yeah. Yes, he was. Yeah, it was, he's a metalhead, so it was something, gosh, I don't know. Slaughter or so, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask him.
Oh yeah. With all the metal references he makes in his talks and everything, I would imagine he has to know one of the bands at this point. I mean, he was.
I think it's on the recording of the event. We can look at previous Tipsy Testings.
Yeah.
Well, before getting into automation, I'm sure that Paul was probably like a roadie at some point. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's certainly been to enough concerts. My God. Yeah, he's got quite a repertoire.
No, he and I have a great time talking about, whether it's just hard rock or metal. I'm not quite the metalhead he is, although I certainly celebrate a few, metal bands and everything. So, but yeah, no, I unfortunately I can't say that I've been on stage with anyone of any, any fame or anything like that.
But in a movie, still in a movie.
There you
That's
go.
pretty cool.
Yep. And of course, we have with us today Adam Sandman. Adam has been a programmer since the age of 10. He has been working in the IT industry for the past 20 years. I know it's a long time. Adam is currently the Director of Technology at Inflectra Corporation, where he is interested in technology, business, and innovation. And because Adam has been so tolerant every week in giving us a fun fact, I'm giving him a choice today. He gets to either pick a fun fact or a theme song.
Well, actually, I think I may have two fun facts this time. So I was thinking about this one because the first thing that is that Lotus Notes seems to play a commonality in this today's event, because I used to work in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and across from our office at Sapient, where as a consultant, we'll talk more about that later on, was the headquarters of Lotus Notes, and I actually knew one of the designers who designed the UI and the entire interface of Lotus Notes. And he when it was bought by IBM and it sort of went downhill. The guy, Darian Hendricks, if you're listening, I enjoyed working with you. He ended up moving to Sapient to do UI work for all of our clients, but his original project was designing all of the UI in Lotus Notes, and he designed it so that it would be bright colors, unlike sort of Microsoft Blue. He wanted to make it a very vibrant experience. So I knew him. And my second fun fact is, since we're Tipsy Testing and we're talking about making great drinks, I was a Boy Scout leader, and one of my talks I had to do was on the dangers of alcohol and drugs and all that stuff. And I wanted to bring some props in. So I brought in 10 bottles of liquor that I had accumulated, like including this absinthe that I have used for this drink. And at the end of the talk, they said, you know, Mr. Sandman, did you drink all that this week? I'm like, no, because they sort of assumed that I brought in a week's worth of stuff, and it was like a whole bottle of absinthe, a whole bottle of whiskey that I've been keeping for this talk for a year, but they didn't quite realize. So to this day, they don't remember anything I said. All they remember is I brought in 10 bottles of hard liquor that seemed to be empty, and they were, I don't think they got much out of it other than that, but they enjoyed it.
This was like a front or something like that. It was like a cover.
Yeah, I wasn't the best Scoutmaster. It may turn out to be in reality, but I enjoyed it. My son enjoyed it. He's Eagle Scout, so it turned out all right in the end.
I think it's great. Anytime someone's willing to take a leadership position with other people's kids, hats off.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
I have stories I can't talk about on this program, but yes, for sure.
All right, should we dive into some questions?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Violetta, hi Violetta. It is great to have you with us again. Violetta says or asks, how do you support motivation in your team? Kirk, do you want to start?
Yeah, you know, I think there's definitely no one size fits all approach. I mean, you know, and again, kind of to put things in context a little bit as far as TapQA. So we are as you mentioned, a consulting firm. So everybody that works for us is a consultant and part of the TapQA family, part of our organization. But most people then, of course, work for another organization. So they, paycheck is to TapQA. They wear the TapQA polo shirt, but I mean, they may work at one of our clients, like a Target or a Best Buy, or some of the bigger clients we have in Minnesota and then nationwide. So it's definitely not a one size fits all approach. And as you look at consultants and everything, I mean, they there's a lot of commonalities and everything. One that we have really in common at TapQA is that people are really passionate about technology. They're passionate about learning. They're passionate about growth. Those are the things that we look at when we're hiring folks for TapQA. But everybody's going to have a little bit different motivation. And it's really important to find out what those are even before bringing them onto your team, and then keeping tabs on that as they go along. As far as with their career growth and everything, they will let you know pretty quickly what things they're most interested about. And I always like to ask, like, what do you do for fun that you can kind of tie back to your job? I mean, there's, fun is, for me, it's coaching basketball or going to a football game or playing fantasy football or playing a guitar or something like that, which isn't necessarily tied to work. But, I also, I like to read up on trends in marketing. I like to read up on trends in quality assurance and things like that. And I like to kind of, have those conversations with our consultants, because it really allows us to see, like, what do you really enjoy? And if you're not doing it now, if we can't help you do it eventually, you may find somewhere else to go do it. So it's really kind of finding out, like, what makes them tick and what their hot buttons are, and the things that they just kind of just enjoy and just have fun with. Because if you can bring those kind of things to your job, that's huge. That's huge. And conversely, if you find that someone is in a role where it's just so far away from what their motivators are and what their hot buttons are, it's definitely a potential red flag. So it's kind of making sure that if they aren't doing something at that point, just to give them, whether it's a pet project or whether it's an opportunity to mentor someone, or whether it's an opportunity to be mentored, give them some kind of opportunity so they continue, that they feel that they're growing, even if they aren't able to grow in a current role, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Adam, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, motivation for us is different because it and has different, there's different things we have to think of, because we're hiring people who are going to be building the same product maybe for 10 years. So it's, when I was working in consulting, motivation was a lot of times about variety of project, good clients. People didn't want to do the same system year after year, not being doing the same technology. So when we're moving to a product firm like Inflectra, where we're building, a family, there's basically a family of 3 tools, a different team that you work on, but most people work on that same tool potentially as long as their career is going to be. If they're a developer, they're in support, they're going to be supporting that same tool. And in marketing and sales, it's not like we're going to do a marketing campaign for a different client. Like if you work for a marketing agency, you might do, Coke or Pepsi or Target. But if you're a marketing person at our company, you're doing our marketing for the same products till you leave. So motivation is in some ways more difficult in that you can't use variety as a crutch. So I think what I like to look for is, can we find new, exciting, big, hairy, audacious goals from the book Built to Last, I always think of, which I know Jessica's reading. So BHAGs, that's what I think is really important. So like doing InflectraCon, last year we had the opportunity to do a user conference for the first time, and everyone was like, well, I don't know if we can do it this year. Of course, I'm glad we did it last year because it would be easier than this year. And they're like, well, let's do it. What's the worst that can happen? And I think it gave our marketing team, our product team, everyone got a chance to do something completely new that they hadn't been doing for the previous 2 years. And then when the virtual conferences came along, we could have just bought an off-the-shelf platform, but we decided to do something completely new, using some new technologies, and thanks to Arlene for some really good ideas of how to make it interactive. So I think the key is to make it fresh. If you're dealing with a team that has to work on the same core technology or the same core product, whatever your role is, finding ways to give someone a stretch goal that they wouldn't have thought of. I think on the work side of motivation, I think that's a huge motivator for people, that it doesn't feel like it's the same job every year. The second part is, if you give people the freedom to experiment and not micromanage people, then I think that's also a huge motivator. The most demotivating thing is when I had a boss at Sapient who would basically tell you how to do your job every day, and that it doesn't matter how good the client is or how good the work is. When you have a micromanager, it's always demotivating. So I think avoid that tendency too.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you brought up kind of the, giving someone an opportunity to do something different. And, luckily, working with a consulting firm, you have, what's built into that is you have variety. I mean, certainly we have consultants who do such a great job that their clients literally never let them go. We've had some, even the time that I've been with TapQA 8.5 years, and we've had some consultants who've been with a client for 7 or more or 8 or more years.
Wow.
And I mean, crazy. But we have variety built in, which is great. But for those that don't, for those that are in corporate America, one of the things that I've always kind of gravitated towards is the ability for someone to kind of take on their own pet project, or take on kind of a something that will add to the culture of the company. Whether it's you are going to be in charge of leading lunch and learns for artificial intelligence, that's something that's going to be a hot topic, or is a hot topic in quality assurance. We'd like you to kind of present back to all of us, and you find someone who really just gets jazzed doing that. Even if bringing AI into an organization is years down the road, at least kind of learn about it, teach us about it. And you find that people are like really excited to do that kind of thing, and they feel kind of ingrained in the company, where it's like, well, I can't look anywhere else. I'm the AI guy from this company, or whatever. But or leading something that is maybe not necessarily related to the job, but give them an opportunity to lead like a volunteer group or something like that. What we found is that when it comes to like getting people together and just really team building and getting people excited about being with one another and being part of a culture, being a part of like a volunteer organization has always been huge, because giving back to the community. And it's a way of like, at TapQA we'll have times where we pack food for a food shelf, or we'll work at a food shelf or something, and it becomes a big group activity. And it's like we're giving back to the greater good, but we're also hanging out with each other. We're becoming closer with one another, and those kind of things I think just go a long ways. And if you give a chance to someone to be kind of in charge of that, I really like that as kind of a motivating thing too. I think it really helps with team building and helps give people kind of a purpose beyond just their day-to-day job within a company.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So you bring up an interesting issue, Kirk, where we talk a lot about testing, hands-on testing in this series, but we haven't really talked a lot about the consulting side of things. So can you tell us about consulting, some of the misconceptions around consulting, and about what consultants really do?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think there's in full disclosure, I've pretty much been in IT consulting almost my entire career. So, I feel like I've had, my hands in it for quite a while. And, while I haven't worked for every kind of company, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding. And I think there's a big misconception between, consulting. I think a lot of folks maybe hear that term and assume, maybe more so like independent contracting or 1099 work or, where you have to find your own business and you kind of, you own your own destiny and things like that. And that is definitely a part of consulting, but it's not all of what consulting is. And it's really finding, kind of the right fit. And if you ever hear any talk that I do, it's all about, finding the right fit with a company regardless. And that goes along with consulting firms as well. A lot of folks love the idea of going out on their own and being independent, starting their own company. There's a lot of benefits to that. And at a certain point in one's career, it makes sense for a lot of people. But there are also a lot of companies, kind of like, Tap QA, but we're not alone, where we hire folks as if they are our employees. They're salaried employees. They, we work on their career path. We want them to stay with us over the long haul. So we don't just, it's kind of, you hear the term out there of like, body shop or whatever. I don't like that term, but it's where it's, you might come to join us for just one contract and you'll be with this company, but then after that, we don't know. And a lot of companies work like that and they're great, but there's a lot of companies that really have to focus more on the longevity of someone staying with an organization. And for those that would try consulting, I think those are, a great place to start. But the cool thing about consulting, and I say this, in good times and bad, but this was something that we really saw. We're seeing a little bit now, although the market now is, it's better than I thought it was going to be with everything going on. But I think back to like 2008, 2009, 2010. I mean, all of us were in the industry at that point too, and it was tough. I mean, with the recession and everything. But what we found was that folks that had proven time and time again that they could go to a company and do something, whatever it was, whatever the function was, whether you're a software architect, whether you're a software tester, whether you're a project manager, whatever it was, and you build a resume based on, a year-long project or 18-month project, and you just have a lot of success stories along the way. We found that folks like that had an easier time finding work because they've proven that they can come in, solve an immediate problem, do something, whatever it is, for a year and a half. They were very adaptable, and it really became, I think, a value that someone put on their resume. There's always so much to be said about someone staying with a company for a very long time. The unfortunate part of that is kind of we're moving into whatever, if you want to call it the gig economy or whatever you want to call it, where like we'll get a resume of someone that's been with a company for 20 years, and we want to hone in on the real positive things that the person brings to the table. But again, it's like, well, you've been successful for one company for a very long time. That's not to say that you would be successful somewhere else. And it's, it's a horrible generalization to make, but unfortunately, a lot of folks, do make that. Where consulting, if you get into the field and everything, and you show your value multiple times with multiple clients, there's really a lot of value to that. And future employers, whether it's another consulting engagement or whether it's a full-time opportunity, they see that and they see, this person can come in, hit the ground running, and really bring a lot of value right away. So that, I think, is maybe, as I talk about the benefits of consulting, that's probably the one that comes up more than anything else that I think is universal across all technology roles. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So Adam, you, before Inflectra, you were with Sapien. How would you like to, relate?
Well, the thing about consulting, I think it's an amazing career, especially when you come out of college. And I was 21, 22. I also moved to the United States, so I really had no experience of American culture beyond what I watched in the movies, which was interesting. I was expecting Knight Rider and the A-Team to show up at my door, and I was disappointed.
A lot of bands, guys hopping out, I'm sure. Yeah,
Where's the guy with machine guns and the helicopters flying over and all this, and they can't shoot anything. They all seem to miss. It's great. If only America was like that. But for real, coming to America, consulting a new country and not knowing much about industry and business, consulting is an amazing like MBA in a box. You get paid to basically learn amazing skills. I was in Boston then at the beginning, so I was working with commercial clients in the telecom space, people like Verizon, but actually before Verizon it was Bell Atlantic and NYNEX and the old baby bells, and doing some work for some other financial clients up in Boston. And then I moved to LA, to the LA office. So I got to live in California and worked for a little bit of time with, was it Herbalife, the vitamin supplement people. And then I got to work with the Marine Corps, which then got me to DC. So that's how I ended up in DC. But consulting is a really great place to get a varied career in, whether it's IT consulting or classic management consulting. I think if you're in your 20s, IT consulting is a really good option, because if you're going into something like McKinsey or management consulting, you haven't got an MBA, so you're not actually a consultant. You're basically being what's called a BA or business analyst. You're basically an Excel, I won't use the nasty way they call it, an Excel person whose job is to do a lot of number crunching. You're not really learning as much as you think you are, and not as much as they're selling that you're going to learn. You'll learn more at a management consulting firm, I think, when you come out with an MBA and then go into consulting. Whereas IT consulting, if you can program, you're going to come in straight and actually be able to learn a lot of skills and be productive and not just be a data entry person, which is what you'll do. So I think you have to be very careful, as Kirk said, about what consulting firm you work for. A lot of the prestigious strategy firms really are not for you, therefore, when you have an MBA. Whereas like an Accenture or any of the IT firms, Deloitte or TapQA, other companies that are in the IT space, you'll learn a lot. But make sure it's a project-based company, not a body shop. I do not to use the word, but I think that's one of the challenges of being in the Washington, D.C. area, because a lot of government consulting firms aren't consulting firms. They are CEDA contractors. They basically hire you to work for a government agency, and you work as if you were a federal agent, federal employee, except you're cheaper and have less benefits. And the government doesn't ask for your advice; they tell you what to do. So you don't learn, you don't get the skills that you get in a consulting firm. So I think the Washington D.C. area calls people consultants, but they're really contractors. And I think so. A lot of the people in our area are unique because the government doesn't know how to buy consulting. It tends to think of it as I need to buy 5 people that replace the 5 people that used to be here before. And I've seen really strange things in D.C. where you end up where the people who work on the team are these 5 individuals, Bob, Joe, and and Erica, and then we get rid of that company because they're too expensive. We hire another company, but it's still Bob, Joe, and Erica, but they now work for the other company. So what happens is the government uses consulting firms as a sort of so they can get quote competition, but they really want the same 3 people they always have. They just make the new person hire them. So all the benefits of having a new company come in and have a fresh look and re-engineer how they're doing things, it doesn't happen. So the whole idea of consultants coming in and giving you a fresh business process and bringing best practices, if you're not buying it as a project, all you're doing is potentially buying the same people with a new badge. So I think you have to be very discriminating when you look at consulting. They're not all the same. But I think it's an amazing career, especially if you're young or if you really want a varied career and you just don't want to doing the same thing. I really enjoyed my 7 or 8 years at Sapien. It was really, really insightful.
Exactly. And I guess since we're kind of in the mode we're in right now with the pandemic and everything, I think a lot of folks may shy away from even taking on a contract because they're like, well, this contract may it may interfere with me getting a quote unquote real job. And it's always interesting to hear people refer to full-time employment as a real job, with contract work not being a real job. And I think it's over the last 20 years, the nature of IT projects is, in a lot of cases, you can learn so much more by taking on contracts, even if it's, not with a consulting firm like TapQA. I mean, there are so many really good, what you kind of fall into the traditional staffing category. There's a lot of really good companies out there that do that sort of work. And you have an opportunity to make, to build your resume on, say a number of contracts, even if it's working with multiple firms like that, as opposed to going to a full-time job and progressing through that job for 10 years. It's like you learn a lot, of course, but you're learning under one roof, as opposed to taking on a year here or 18 months here or whatever the case may be, learning new environments, new industries, a new tech stack. It might be very different here than it is over here, and all of that is going to build a really, really strong resume. Where it's we always called it recession proofing, which is kind of I guess a relevant term, potentially even right now, where it's like no matter what, I mean, you're showing that you're well-rounded, you're showing that you're very adaptable, For those that might be looking for work right now, or interested in seeing what's out there, contract work is great, regardless of if it's working with a full-time consulting firm like ChatQA, or any of the other staffing firms that are out there. That you get a good vibe, and it's talking to your recruiter, talking to the whoever the account executive might be. I mean, again, not all staffing firms are created equal either. But if there's one that you get a good vibe with and everything, and they have great clients and interesting work, I mean, those are good ones to look at as well.
One thing I'd also say about the recession is that if people right now are looking for jobs, if you get a part-time staffing gig with a company, well, as the economy gets better again, which it will do, you're going to be the person they know. It's a great way to get inside track on those permanent jobs, because if they like you, even if you're there for 6 months to do some specific piece of work, we've probably got the inside track when they are looking to hire someone. So I wouldn't see it as one or the other. Sorry, Jesse, you going to say something?
No, not well. I was going to point out that you had said, and you just kind of alluded to it now, we're talking about going in somewhere or seeing one crew from one consulting firm in a site, and it's the same crew with the next firm, but at the same site, but it's all in a specific location. But obviously the virus has prevented that. So how do you see COVID-19 affecting consulting down the road or right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's one that we're kind of I don't think we've formed the correct answer yet, because I think everything is still in flux. But I think what it has done is it's given organizations a comfort level that not everyone needs to be under one roof. We've seen that now with a number of tech companies, particularly in the Bay Area, I think where it started. Companies like Facebook, I believe, but others have said, we are work from home indefinitely. Even when we have a treatment and a cure and a vaccine, this is something that works for us. And I think what that has done is it definitely opens more opportunities, or potentially could open more opportunities for people that say we're sitting in Minneapolis. So we're in Minneapolis, and we've got a lot of great companies here in Minneapolis. I mean, we love the consultant or the client base that we have here, but but you want to work on you want to work on Bay Area tech, or you want to work on something from the East Coast. And a lot of times those companies would say, well, no, you need to be in New York, or you need to be in San Fran, in wherever, Seattle. And now it's like, with everybody being so comfortable with remote work, I think it opens up the opportunity where, say a company in Seattle would say, we just want to find the perfect fit, and the perfect fit may not be someone that lives in Seattle. It might be someone that lives in the Midwest. It might be someone that lives in the Southeast. And since we've really done well with the remote working thing, we can go hire that person, or we can bring them on as a consultant or a contractor. So I think it's created a comfort level, hopefully at least it created a comfort level that allows organizations to look at people that aren't physically going to visit the office every day, but still be able to do great work from their homes, or great work from a co-working location, or whatever the case may be. That I think it gives a lot more opportunity in the world of consulting, and potentially full-time work too, but particularly consulting.
Adam?
I was thinking, I mean, it's hard to know the future, because when everyone's remote, everything's equal. But I wonder if, as soon as some people can be non-remote again, if you're a consulting firm and you're pitching against another consulting firm, you're going to obviously sell your advantage if you can put on-site people, and the company that you're working for has gone partly on-site, or even all on-site again. I suppose what will happen is that might be considered a competitive advantage. So we never know how the world's going to end up. I mean, sort of thinking about, my daughter was asking me about this. Well, I think it's going to change the way they are forever. And I remember thinking, like, 1918, you had the Spanish flu. And yet, if you look at pictures of the 1920s, no one's wearing masks, and yet they were in the 1918. So the Roaring Twenties, it's hard. We should never overcorrect. On the other hand, I think for IT consulting, a lot of the work can be done remote, and probably could always have been done remote. I do think back to my career at SAP, doing some strategy work, like workshops. Those were very hard to do remotely. I mean, you needed to have a client locked away in a room where they weren't checking email, and they weren't trying to multitask, which we all do on our virtual meetings. It's not supposed to be what we do. And so I think some kinds of consulting will probably gravitate back to in person, and some things will not. So it may depend on the type of work. Or you do that week workshop, and then the team can then distribute and do the implementation. Then you come back at the end of the month and do a checkpoint, which might be in person. So maybe there's less in person. A friend of mine actually works for McKinsey. He used to work at Sapient, and he said that they're going to be working remote for the year, and they've never worked remote. So McKinsey would fly you 4 days a week out of 5 every single week. And he has young kids, so he's loving it, because he was almost going to probably quit McKinsey because he couldn't take the travel. But all the older partners who grew up in McKinsey, they hate it. They used to love their golf trips. They would stay for the weekend. They bring their spouses with them. It was the perk of being at McKinsey, was this kind of lifestyle, like Up in the Air with George Clooney, where you were above, never had to worry about your apartment. They had very small apartments probably because they're never there. And so a lot of the people at McKinsey, they really hate this remote work, and they can't wait to go back. And the clients don't want them. The clients are like, no, we don't want you in our office bringing all your. So you travel every week on an airplane. No, you can stay away as long as you want. Don't bring your germs. And yet, I think for a lot of the consultants, that was for them, it's been very harder than the clients. So I don't know. It's interesting where it's going to go back. But it definitely depends on the type of work and the client, what they want.
So tying this all back to Violetas' question, which was a 3-part question, somewhat related. We had gone from how to support motivation in the team to consulting in general, and now back to part B, which is, are there any tips for how to behave during the conflict? Which I'm assuming is from a work perspective. Adam, do you want to start on this one?
So which conflict? The conflict of being at home or in consulting, or the conflict between your client and the company that you work for? Sorry, which?
Or I would say it's open to interpretation. When I read it, I thought the conflict meant the virus, that it's trickier now with people off-site, but I think you could take it any way you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an intrinsic conflict as a consultant between the company you work for and the client you work for, and they're not, because the company you work for has goals. Sorry, the badge you wear. Like, so if you work for, I'll use Sapient, so I'm not offending anyone presently here. Sapient, when I worked for Sapient, we had loyalty to the company of Sapient. We also worked for the US Marine Corps as a client, which is an incredibly cohesive, passionate organization, and it was just after 9/11. So as employees, we felt very bound towards the mission of our client, helping them succeed, because the country itself was at stake, and that's we felt. And at times, Sapient didn't necessarily want to do certain things. So an example I'll give is that we were asked to provide on-site support in Iraq for a software system. And so there was a major conflict for the company, because they weren't sure they wanted to send an employee into Iraq at the time of war, because we were consulting for them, we weren't like a Blackwater or a Northrop Grumman. We weren't configured for this. We had IT guys who, expected to go to the office and get coffee and Starbucks, and we found a volunteer who's like, I'll go to Iraq. And so we're on conference. We had six lawyers on one conference call. We had the client and all of our internal stakeholders on the other conference call in parallel. We had like 2 spider phones, star phones. Oh my goodness! I remember it was the longest night. And we eventually got the night before the flight was about to go, we finally got the go-ahead from the company. But I know there was a lot of angst at Sapient. A lot of the employees in the DC office really wanted to send someone we felt very passionate on the mission. And we were fighting the corporate execs in Boston who felt like this wasn't the right thing for us to do. They were worried about it. And at times we're like, there was a lot of passions and conflict between the mission of Sapient and the mission of the Marine Corps, and how to square them. And in the end, we managed to, I think, satisfy both. But at times it was unclear. Some people in the company felt, I think, more loyal to the client and would have probably quit Sapient if it wasn't, and maybe enlisted. And in the past, we had in LA when we did the Marine Corps work, one of our consultants did enlist in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So that's always that conflict, I think, as a consultant, between what's good for the client, what's good for the company that pays your paycheck, and who's deriving revenue from the client. But it can be tricky. It's a divided loyalty. I don't know if I answered the question, but it's definitely an interesting challenge, and I think there's no clear answer.
No, I mean, that's probably the thing to say, is there's really no clear answer. There's no one size fits all approach or one size fits all answer for this. I mean, what we've definitely seen, and we're fortunate. We have some great clients, awesome clients that are very, very flexible with just kind of everything that's going on in life right now. I think it really boils down to communication. If we're talking about behaviors or I think Jessica, the way you phrased the question was just, kind of the, the behaviors or good behaviors that someone would have during the conflict and during the pandemic. Communication is the one thing, just really being over communicative. And if you think you're over communicating, you're probably not, but really making sure that everyone is aware of, you don't have to report back every 15 minutes, of course, unless you want to, which some people would probably find that annoying, I would guess. But really just making sure that everybody's aware of not just what you're doing on your job, but what's going on in life as well. Over the last few months, everybody in any walk of life it's not just your day job anymore. I mean, your day job is your day job, but it's also, you might be a chauffeur, you might be a teacher, you might be a project manager managing projects at your house. Here at the Walton household, we have a Kanban board for our kids' online learning and everything. At least we did during the spring, and it's going to happen here again in the fall, where it's like you have to take a step away to do some of that. With me, I guess like I become the gym teacher in our house, because it's like, all right, kids, we're going to go for a walk. We're going to go, go out and shoot baskets or something like that. Just to get some exercise. And those are things that are going to take away from like just the typical 8 to 5. But if they do take it away, you have to be on the ball, especially in our world in consulting, where client satisfaction is what we demand. I mean, we have to have that. If we don't, then we don't get to come back. we don't get more people. So we've told everyone. I mean, these things happen, and clients will understand. Your employer will understand, but you just really have to be great about communicating. When you're going to be away. And what we've seen with a lot of clients is kind of going to the a friend of mine coined the term actually once, is the results-oriented workplace environment, or a ROWE. And it's more of like what you actually do. So it's not, 8 to 5 and just being by your desk the entire time. In most cases, hopefully, and we've seen more and more flexibility with that. But it's you have a job, you have these goals, and if you have to check out for 3 hours because you need to bring your kid to the doctor, or you need to do some help with schoolwork, I mean, we understand that. And I think most employers do. But as long as you communicate to us that this is what you're going to do, and you'll hop back on later on at night, or as long as you get you work double time to get something done, and your results are there, that's okay. But we just really need to know. So in case we need to get a hold of you and you're not just sitting there on Slack or Messenger or whatever, that we know that, okay, this is the reason why you're teaching right now, because you have to, because of the world that we're in. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. As long as you keep communication channels open and you're just really good with it, that will go a long ways in in our current conflict and everything.
Do you find it's more exhausting though? Because I know that for a lot of our employees and myself too, when I go to the office right now, so I'm lucky. But for those who work from home more consistently, trying to office is difficult. I found that when I was at home a lot more, you're not really off, you're not really on. There's always the temptation. The phone sits there. You can look at Google Chat or Slack, whatever tool the company uses. There's always that it's hard to put it down and have a discrete time. And I know that was something that when I used to work from home before the pandemic years ago, that was always the hardest thing. And I always believed in that. Work when you're at home, be at home with the family, be 100% fully invested in what you're doing. The pandemic, I think, to scramble that some. It's very difficult to have that clear line, because sometimes you just can't. You have to, at night, if you're making up time in the evening, you probably do have to still be there for your kids if they need you at night. So I think it's creating a lot of background low-level stress that's accumulating over the last 6 months. And so I think we as employers have to be cognizant of that and make extra allowances. It's not just the fact you're working different hours, but there's this background stress level, which is, I think, present.
100% agree, Adam, and that's something that we have. I think we've instructed, or not instructed, suggested to our clients, and certainly the way we manage our teams as well. I can speak from experience. I think when you go to the office and everything, my experience at least is when you get home, yeah, you'll have work and everything, but really there's that divide. It's like the stuff that I do in the office is for work. The stuff that I do at home is generally going to be for the family or for personal time, with a few check-ins here and there. And when you blur the lines and when everything is out of your home, I know for sure that I put in more work hours than I ever have during the last 6 months. Because it is kind of hard to turn it off, because there's so much to do, and you're just accustomed to, you walk by your computer and you walk by your office and you're like, well, I should be doing this maybe, so I'm going to just sit down and do this. And it's definitely, the low level stress, or even beyond low level stress, it's definitely caused, a fair amount of that. So for those that are in leadership, it's definitely, we advise, please keep an eye on your folks and everything to make sure that they're not, getting too stressed out and too crazy and everything. And be flexible with, just, hey, I've noticed you've been working a lot. I get emails from you at 6 in the morning, at 9 at night. We appreciate the hard work, and always say, we appreciate the hard work, because it's, you want these, your employees and your team members, they want to do a good job, and sometimes that they have to do those things because of the stuff that happens during 8 to 5 that's not work related. But just to be on top of it, that they might be working 8 to 5 and beyond, and if they are, just to encourage them to, hey, take breaks, go for a walk, and go for a walk outside, go swim laps, go play tennis, whatever you want to do, go hang out with the kids, watch a movie, take a break for sure, because those things, little by little, they will creep up, and like you said, Adam, low level stress will build and build and build, and all of a sudden that's when someone is down for the count for a few days, and ultimately that's the total productivity you get from someone is going to be much worse if they have to take a longer break because of health reasons and everything.
Burnout, right.
Lord knows we have a lot of health concerns right now with everything going on.
One of our managers, when she went on vacation, I was like, I threatened to disconnect her VPN if she didn't take a break, that is. Oh, and we had a joke. We were going to play a joke and put a 404 fake. We were going to put a fake web page so that if she went to certain places on our website, it would go to a page not found. Only she would see that, but we didn't do that in the end. We thought that would cause more stress than it might solve.
It's actually really nice listening to both of you guys talk about how to take care of your employees during this time, and I hope that you're able to. I know that that's truly happening in our office, and Kirk, I think you're really genuine. I assume that's happening in yours too, and I hope that you are able to take care of yourselves as well, because in a leadership role, I think that can be even more challenging when you feel like you're faced with a multitude of decisions and recordings and things that need to be looked over. I mean, just everything that you do in the day, plus you're doing the Kanban board with your kids, plus you're, supervising the intern who happens to live in your house. And so there's a lot of...
Was that me?
Right.
Yeah,
no, and that's a really good point, Jessica. I mean, we, as leaders and those that might, listen to the recording and everything as leaders, is absolutely take care of yourself, because, normally you have an opportunity to kind of schedule those check-ins with your team on an 8 to 5 basis. But then once 5 o'clock rolls around, I mean, certainly you have some stuff to carry home, but most of the time you don't. Whereas now, I mean, those one-to-one meetings and just, kind of checking in with your team members, making sure they're doing okay, that may happen well before 8 to 5 or well after 8 to 5, but you have to be there for it. And it's not like during the 8 to 5, it's like, well, now my meetings are pushed to 7 and 8 at night. You're still probably in work mode from 8 to 5 because you're just accustomed to doing that. And then it just extends your work day. So what usually was 40 to 50 hour work week might stretch to a 60 to 70 hour work week, and that's going to catch up. So yeah, just take the time to whether it's just hey, let's just I assume things are well, let's just miss this meeting, or if it's non-essential meeting, or kind of like with your employees, they have to take breaks during the day, even if you don't have a family duty or something like that. Take a long lunch break, go shopping, retail therapy, right? Even if you can't get into a store, I guess, go shopping online, or go for a walk. I mean, just things like that. We've been preaching that so much with TapQA, with our employees and with our consultants, is just take breaks, take the time to really, hang out with the family, help your family out, help your friends out, whatever the case may be. Just do those sorts of things, because it's just going to relieve that stress. And it's just, over the long run, it's absolutely going to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. We've gone to 4:45 without talking about our cocktails. So let's get to our drinks. This is an important part of what we're doing here. So Adam, you have something in such a fancy glass today. What is it?
So I promised online on, I think it was LinkedIn or Twitter, I don't remember which one it was, one of the channels. I promised Kirk I would make something interesting. So this is a Sazerac, which is it's mostly gone, but it's still there. It's a beautiful orangey red color drink. It's actually made from rye whiskey, or you can use bourbon, but from it's actually the national drink of New Orleans. And you get some rye whiskey, and then you mix in some, if you can see this, absinthe, which is not banned anymore in the US, luckily, thank God, as long as they remove the wormwood and the taurine, which is the psychotropic mind-altering hallucinogen that used to be in it, which is gone. Van Gogh didn't mind it. Van Gogh liked it with the hallucinogen, but I can do it without. And then you get some Peychaud bitters, which is a small bottle of It's not the regular Angostura bitters, it's a red colored bitters. It almost smells medicinal. So a few drops of that, and then that together with the whiskey and the absinthe gives you a Sazerac. And if you really want to be fancy, which I didn't have time for, you put a lemon peel in there as well. But I didn't.
Oh, nice.
It looks and sounds delicious. What about you?
It kind of scares me. I always like growing up and everything, like hearing about absinthe in wormwood and everything. It was just like, okay, am I going to hallucinate if I start drinking this or whatever? I mean, I know it got a bad rap for a long time. Now I hear the word absinthe, I just think of the show in Las Vegas, which if you haven't seen it, as long as you're not easily offended, go to that show. It's hilarious. It's one of the best Las Vegas shows that I've been to. It's awesome.
What's it called? It's called absinthe?
It's called absinthe, yeah, and it's in like this classic like vaudevillian tent. And I mean, again, if you're easily offended, you've been warned. Because I mean, it is very, very, it's raunchy, but it's also kind of this Cirque du Soleil where you have, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's some death-defying acts that happen literally like inches away from your face. Wow. And I mean, it's frightening. So if you go, we sat in the back and we felt better sitting in the back because we were in the front row. It's like, okay, one person slips, that person's going to probably knock my head off. So, you know, we're safer in the back and everything. But no, it's called Absinthe. It's a great show. It's something I recommend to everybody that goes to Las Vegas, as long again as you're not easily offended and everything.
Do you drink absinthe in the show? I mean, as a participant, do they make you drink absinthe so you can appreciate it?
No, actually, I think it's just the name. I don't even know if they serve absinthe, to be honest. They maybe. Yes,
make you feel like you're on it. It's like, as if, oh my God, I feel like I'm on absinthe, but it's not really.
Yeah, no, check it out. I mean, it's like I said, if you're in Vegas, it's a great show. So so my drink here. So you know, I'm a Midwest kind of guy, so I have an old fashioned.
Oh, I love old
fashioned. Now, Jessica B from Wisconsin. I will say this is with whiskey, not with brandy. I know that's the thing in your neck of the woods.
I don't even know what you're drinking, Kirk.
Oh, okay, all right. It's I mean, so I'll be the first to admit I cheated. I had like this old-fashioned kind of mix, which typically you just you pour whiskey and then you put in whether it's sugar or you can cheat with simple syrup. You use bitters and then I mean there's a million different ways you can make it because you can use whatever whiskey you want, you can use whatever bitters you want, you can however you want to prepare the sugar, whether it's just through simple syrup or just using sugar. Sometimes you'll put like an orange peel in.
Yeah.
I just got this like old-fashioned mix, so for me it's just like the mix and the whiskey, and then it's just you stir it, and then it's done. And that's for me. Then I can't screw it up. So the whiskey I have.
You're breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart here. You're breaking.
I just I'm not confident enough in my ability to mix things. Like, for me, it's like 2 ingredients is usually, I mean, like I'm a gin and tonic guy because I can't mess a gin and tonic up because it's gin and it's a tonic. And if I happen to have a lime, then I get to put the lime in too. But then I can't mess it up. I mean, that's why like I'll go to a bar and I'll find the most complex drink that I can because then it's like someone else really knows how to do this and they're a professional at it and they've got 8 ingredients and it's going to be awesome. But if I try to do an 8-ingredient drink at home, it's going to be a mess. So I can't do that. So I have to I'm a 2 ingredient kind of guy and everything. So, but the whiskey that I have in here is it's called Blackened American Whiskey, and we were talking before about Paul Verhoeven and being a big metal fan, and so Metallica. Who I presume at this point most people probably know who Metallica is, but Metallica, like all time, is one of my 2-3 favorite bands ever. I've seen them, I don't know, almost 10 times I think live in concert. I've met the band. The band is awesome.
Really?
Love the band. And they started or they co-founded a whiskey company a couple years ago, And I love telling this story because I'm a gimmick guy and I'm a Metallica guy. So I'm just like, okay, this is for me. I mean, this whiskey was made for me. So what they do is they have the whiskey in the barrel, and as it's going through its aging process, they accelerate the aging process by putting in like I don't know what it's not a speaker, but it's some sort of like wire that will conduct sound, and they'll actually pump Metallica music into the barrel to get the whiskey to shake and get the barrel to shake, so it gets into the nooks and crannies of the barrel to be able to age the whiskey that much faster. And when I heard that, I'm just like, okay, I don't even know if this is true or not. This might just be, a bunch of hogwash, but I'm in. I mean, it's just like, all right, cool. And then what they do is like they'll put the batch that they made. So the bottle is, so this was like batch 99 or something like that. And then you can actually go get the playlist of batch 99 on Spotify. So
that's cool.
That's
in this glass.
I have to buy this.
Listen to, I get to listen to on my Spotify playlist and everything. And
that totally makes up for the fact that you put whiskey in your old-fashioned mix.
Correct. Yes. No, I mean sadly we can't get blackened whiskey in Minnesota due to distribution things. So every time I go to Wisconsin, I usually bring a bottle back because it's the only time I can I can get it and everything. But
can we get
like
it?
I said, I'm a gimmick guy, I'm a Metallica guy, and it's just like the story alone was just it was too much to get away from and everything. So and when they released their 100th batch, so batch 100, they actually I have it. If you don't mind, I'm going to grab it real quick. It's on my shelf here. So here it is. So they actually, so I'm a big vinyl record collector too.
Oh, wow.
So the playlist for batch number 100, they put on a vinyl record and they sold it with the bottle. So
that's awesome. That is a great story about whiskey.
I mean, and again, I don't work for the company or anything like that. So
maybe you should.
I think it's a great story, and I mean, I'm a rookie whiskey drinker at best, but that was again just kind of the connection to the band. I've loved the band forever, so it was just like, all right, this is my dream. So
that's awesome. Did you, as a Metallica fan, have you seen the documentary about the psychologist that tours with them, or that did tour with them when they were, I think it was before any of them went to rehab. Lars had gone to rehab during the middle. It was such a I mean, here are these like mega stars, and they're on tour with their psychologist trying to hold it all together. It's a great movie.
It really, so it was when they were recording an album called Saint Anger, and the name of the documentary is I mean, there's whoever's watching this that actually likes Metallica is probably yelling at the screen, but it was some kind of monster. That was and it's been years since I've seen it, and being a fan of the band, I definitely did see it, but it was crazy that, like, I mean, when I was a kid, it's just like, these guys are nuts. I mean, they're again, mega rock stars. And in this movie, you have, the drummer who's from Finland, Lars Ulrich, who is also this world-renowned art collector that is now selling his pieces of art for millions of dollars. And it's just like, that's not the guy that I grew up with. Like that's not the Lars I knew. I mean, but it just shows you like kind of the different side of the band and how sensitive they would be. And like you said, like those sessions where they would just kind of talk amongst themselves and just really air out their feelings and everything. It was like, wow, this is crazy. This is not the band that I, grew up with and everything. Yeah. But it really shows it's kind of an interesting, just look into just like, never judge a book by its cover, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and just like, kind of the sensitive side of things of these guys who are, like, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, objectively the biggest metal band of all time, and just the personalities that are behind that band and everything. So yeah, it's a fascinating documentary. Now I want to go watch it again.
We'll have to have many joint viewing parties.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and they just released, so a couple years ago, they did their second concert with the San Francisco orchestra. And the first one is of course, I think a pretty famous concert album. They literally just released the second one within the last week. So, if you're a fan of Metallica music and you happen to like the idea of strings and, and woodwinds being involved with Metallica music and everything, it's definitely an interesting listen. And certainly the concert film behind it is good too. So
That's great.
it's a very different direction, didn't we?
We like to have fun on the show. All right, but let's dive back into the questions.
Oh, your drink, Jessica, your drinks though. You haven't
I am not nearly as creative as you guys, although I'm super compelled by the old-fashioned mix, I have to say. My creative cocktail juices were not flowing today, I told Adam. So I'm drinking a beer called, it's a Pilsner called Glass Castle, which is from my favorite local brewery, Silver Branch in Silver Spring. And it's delicious. And I kicked it. I'm using a new computer, thanks to Adam. And I had this glass sitting here on this table. I thought, no, it's going to spill. So I put it down on the floor and then I kicked it over. So we're having a little bit of alcohol drama in my house right now. But that's okay. We'll clean it up later.
That's okay.
Oh, wow. I was just thinking, my theme song, I should have chosen Enter Sandman by Metallica. That would have been the perfect theme tune. That's my last name. And that was the theme tune I used to use when I was in college. When I was a DJ, I would always have to play Enter Sandman as I came on. I'm like, dude, of course I forgot about that song.
I mean, that is, and I even commented to a coworker about that. I'm just like, that is, I mean, your name is a pretty awesome name, Adam. And it's just like, I didn't make the Metallica connection, but yeah, absolutely. If my last name was Sandman, I would absolutely, that would be my theme song regardless. Yeah.
So at InflectraCon 2019, I wanted to have it play when I came on for the keynote, but we couldn't get the AV to work. So maybe in the future, if we can license it and pay for it, which is the other.
Well, and as we know, Metallica is a little finicky about licensing. So
yeah, they are.
Right. So we have to do good by them. Do good by them, right?
Yeah.
I've got a year to work on them.
There you go. Yeah, that would be awesome
for 2021.
Can you imagine if we get the play at the event?
That would really get it, and they would really love it. So.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so diving back in, Kirk, how were you inspired to come up with the term Humanual testing?
Wow, thank you for asking about that. That's we've had fun with that one. It was so I think as we've looked at quality assurance and just the evolution of quality engineering, and as we've looked at how it's evolved over the last 10 to 20 years, what really is kind of an unfortunate byproduct of that as quality assurance has gotten much more technical. I mean, obviously, you guys make a great tool for automation. I mean, there's so many great automation tools out there. So many folks have gotten into making the lives of testers easier, the lives of test departments easier by automating. But what that's done is it's almost made the career manual tester a supporting player, or unfortunately in some cases it's kind of like almost a secondary role, or even beyond that. And it's not fair, because quality assurance professionals bring so much to the table, and it's just such a critical role, regardless of what your role is. If it's a very technical position, or it's a little more focused on the business side. And what we were seeing is, even with clients, or even with folks that we would talk to, it's just like, you'd hear the term just a manual tester, and it's like that sentence should never be uttered. I mean, manual testers, or folks that focus on manual testing, it's still a critical role, because there's so many things you can automate, but there's certain things that you'll never be able to automate. And that's just, the analytical skills and the empathy of a human being. And those are the skills that we can really, as quality assurance professionals, bring to the table. Even the more you automate, the more opportunity then you have to focus on your end users, to focus on making sure that your software isn't just, it doesn't just work, but it's actually something that your end users are going to want to use. The quote that we used in our recent presentation was, you're not just building the thing right, you're building the right thing. And it's not just, it's something that works, but it's something that a client is going to be, or a customer is going to be happy using and everything. And that's where, we feel like as quality engineering organizations evolve, you're really getting a growth in opportunities for folks that maybe don't have that technical gene. Maybe they don't want to go down the automation path or any kind of technical path. And there's a renewed focus then on making sure that you're testing through the lens of the end user. So Humanual testing for us was taking some of the aspects of design thinking. It was taking some of maybe what's a traditional business analyst role and kind of blurring the lines a little bit there to not just test where you're just checking boxes, but it's testing in the sense of, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of this end user for this product, and I'm going to build a persona, and I'm going to be that person, and I'm going to use this product, and I'm going to tell you whether or not it's good. So instead of saying, yes, this works, ship it, it's saying it works, but boy, I have a whole list of suggestions here that we may want to look at before we consider, making this, putting this into production. And it's also giving quality assurance professionals a voice at the table in design sessions. It's infusing quality, throughout the process, and it's just giving us as quality assurance professionals just so much more, the say in everything. And really with the idea that, at the end of the day, we're making software for other human beings, and those other human beings have to enjoy using the software, or else they're going to find another product. They're going to find something else to use. Or they're going to complain about it, and we're going to hear about it at the end of the day. And so we see Humanual testing as really it's the aspects of testing through the lens of that end user, using much more empathy and having more time to do that because of the products that you guys make, the things that test automation professionals bring to the world. It really allows QA professionals to use those really unique aspects and skills that they have for I think a much, in a much better way, if that makes sense.
Right. No, definitely. And actually, I was thinking about this as you're saying it. It actually makes me mad. We actually sell both automated tools or test automation tools, but also test management is our biggest tool set. And actually, we sell more of that in many ways because automation seems to be, everyone tries it, but not everyone necessarily succeeds with it. But that's a whole other story. There are two things that make me really mad though. One is when people talk about manual testers, and it's every time I go to a testing conference, you hear testers always lamenting about how it's like a therapy session. You go to a dev conference for developers, you never hear developers wailing about, oh, we're going to be automated away. No. So I think testers need to be it needs to be much more proud about what they're doing, because without them, nothing's going to be usable by the end user, nothing's going to work. And the other thing that's very interesting, there's a parallel which I was thinking of, which was back in the 90s, there was this theory that, well, if we get computer-aided, like 4G languages, like things like rational unified process, the BAs could take all these requirements, push into this tool, push a button, and it would generate all the code, computer-generated code. And then there'll be no programmers. Programmers go away. We don't need these programmers. And that's when you had the era of massively bloated, horrible to use business systems that no one can stand using, the stuff that probably all the governments are using, which is why no one ever uses these things. And then I was thinking, and that's the problem, that then you get so think of Twitter. I was reading this book, Hashing Twitter, relatively recently, and in 3 days, some crazy programmers who had too much vodka and Red Bull in one go created an application that was amazing and nothing like it. You couldn't have written the requirements because no one knew what they would have been. So on the development side, we recognize that rockstar programmers and clients and end users can, in a very short time in a hackathon kind of environment, create something that you couldn't think about how to write down. But on the testing side, it's the same thing. If you get a really skilled human tester, forget manual, throw that word out the window, a human tester, you say, here's this application, here's your intended users, you explain how it's supposed to be used. You don't write anything else down, no scripts, no click by click. They will understand and get into the skin of that end user. And they, just as quickly as a developer can build something in 3 days, in 3 days, a really skilled tester could tear it down. That would have taken you weeks and weeks of automation scripts, which would have been pointless because you'd have to have thrown it away and started again anyway. So I think it's the same thing. Developers are venerated, and we have these huge conferences about coding and all these languages and how we can make things better. And the testing side, it feels like there's constantly this fight for legitimacy, which is wrong. And my second pet peeve is whenever there's a fight between conflict between the developers and the testers of which tools to use, the developers always win. And that makes me mad because there are tools that the testers really need to do their jobs, and yet the developers say, oh, we don't like that, we want to use something else. And they can't argue why, but they say we just don't want to use it because it's too heavy, too complicated. and then they force the testers to use something inadequate for the testing needs, and then they wonder why the product sucks. So those are two things that make me mad, I think, in this conversation. No one calls them manual coders. Well, they are manual coders. They're not like human automated coders, which is what we were looking at in the 90s, in those days of computer-aided development and these things that we never don't use anymore.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, and I don't know if you see this, Adam, but I mean, we've seen at least, as through the 10 years of TAP QA and everything, and just the growth of our company, but the QA role, regardless of what your day-to-day duty actually is, but you're in the quality world, we've seen that gain so much more importance to the point where QA in a lot of cases can lead a lot of those conversations where they are looked at as the almost the senior to, or maybe not senior, but at least getting away from kind of the traditional of like, okay, developers kind of run things as opposed to QA, whereas QA has always kind of been thought of as a secondary role to development, where it's not maybe all the way flipped around, but at the very least, quality assurance is absolutely considered as important, if not a little more important than even the development side of things. Where some organizations, now are, the ratios of developers to testers have completely flipped, where testers have a lot more emphasis than maybe they ever have before. I don't know if you guys are seeing that as well, but we've certainly seen that with some of our clients where, and in a lot of cases, it's like, well, I'll never say developers are a dime a dozen. I'll never say that, but where they say, hey, we want to put more emphasis in the hires here on the QA side than we even do on the development side. I mean, it seems like it's been maybe a trend over the last years. I think a lot of it is because QA has a lot more importance now, and just putting themselves in the shoes of the end user and things like that. So.
It's funny. I wish I could say I agree with you, but we're not. I don't know. We don't see as much of that in the clients that are our best clients. We do see that, but for a lot of the other clients, we do still see it being developers want to do this. We know that the QA team has explained the risks of doing this and the downsides of doing this, and yet still the management will often back the developers, and they're the ones that fail. So the clients that are most successful, I totally agree with you. And maybe because being as a QA consulting firm, they're bringing in you to the clients that recognize it. So it's a self-selection that the best clients have got TAP QA on board because they recognize the value. As a tool vendor, we see, unfortunately, a much wider range of clients, many of whom maybe don't see the value of QA, and therefore we see, unfortunately, the traditional mindset permeating still. So I think, no, I don't see that. I wish I did.
Yeah, no, old habits die hard. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, luckily with, a lot of the changes that have happened over the last 10 years, I mean, QA and quality is just really being, infused throughout the process and everything. And I think that's certainly helped us, helped our profession in a great way. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly organizations that there's, still a way to go and everything too. So.
Okay, so we're gonna go. We've gotten the serious questions out of the way. And they were actually, it was some really incredible content. We've had quite a conversation today. And I think clearly we need more TAP QA out in the field, because then we'd have more successful clients.
I can help with that, so yeah. TapQA.com, come and check us out, right?
Yeah, well, we'd love to partner with you to help do that too.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Let's talk next week.
Yeah.
But now we have a couple of the part C from Violetta, which is not unlike part A from Arlene. Hi, Arlene. Arlene asks, can you name one thing that has shifted or changed your outlook? And Violetta's part C is there a story from your childhood which made you who you are? So they're not exactly the same, but a lot of, either something really big that's happened to you recently or something from your childhood that's really impacted your outlook on something or made you who you are. Adam, do you want to start? Oh, I'm sorry, Kirk, go right ahead. I apologize.
I don't mind jumping in if you want time to think. It's totally fine.
Oh, wow. Go ahead.
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead, you can.
Sure, I'll go ahead. And I haven't had time to think about this too much. Something from my childhood, I would say, the most important thing from my childhood, actually, number one would be not caring what other people think about you. Because I'm sorry, Dad, my father, I think, growing up, he always had a strong feeling of wanting to please everyone, and always worrying about what other people felt about him, thought about him. And so I've always believed very strongly since growing up in that environment that I would do what I felt was the right thing, to hell with what everyone else thinks. I mean, within reason, obviously, but I think I have a strong action bias, and I have a strong, if my team tells me we should do this, and if the client's unhappy, well, so screw them, because if this is the right thing to do, you've got to do the right thing, however you define that, and stick by it, and without worrying about popularity to some degree. So I think growing up, I think I always had a strength of doing what I felt was the right thing and not worrying about people's opinions about it. If as long as I believed it was the right thing. I mean, obviously you can do the wrong thing, that's a whole story. But if you're doing something that you feel is the right thing in the industry, and I mean, in the software sort of tech field, which we're in the product side, one of the things that we're constantly confronted with is, I think, this feeling of having to buy companies or being bought by companies or private equity. It's always something it's always circling around us all the time. And I've seen so many great companies that had amazing products, for the wrong reasons, sell their companies because they felt like they were going to miss out on something, or they were being told that they should do this, and the great product gets subsumed in something mediocre and it's long gone. So that's always sad when you see something great that gets sort of subsumed into mediocrity. And so I think my outlook has always been, if you feel you're doing the right thing, and you've got people who are a team that's behind you, you should then do it. Then don't worry about what people are going to think about you. They'll move on, even on Twitter.
Great. Kirk, how about you?
Yeah, it's a deep question. It's like I almost feel like I need another old fashioned or two to.
You probably do. You don't.
Get the truth and everything. I think. I mean, my role with the industry, with our company, is really focused on the people side of things, of course, and it's making sure that clients are make sure clients are happy, and making sure that our consultants are happy and everything. And I think it's just it's for me, it's always been a huge rush to see how because we spend so much time in our day working, right? I mean, work is it's even when you, especially in this era and everything that's going on right now, bringing work home or staying home with work and everything. I mean, it's always with you and everything. And I've been in, kind of in people-related roles for a very long time. I mean, recruiting and, everything like that. And it's just, for me, it's just the drive of what, kind of gets me up in the morning every day, if you will, is just making sure that, I can do everything I can to find, the right home for someone, or, having someone join TapQA, or having someone join one of TapQA's clients. It's really going to impact not just their lives, but it'll really help the company. It'll help the company grow. It's bringing that perfect fit into an organization. And I mean, that's really what drives me as as a professional and everything, is just making sure that the kind of the people aspect of this business and everything, and really focusing on just again, finding the right home for someone. I mean, the cool thing about being in consulting or in any kind of recruiting or sales role, I guess, if you will, is you're kind of a professional matchmaker, and it's it's finding that that perfect home for someone, and just seeing how that impacts their lives and makes them super excited to get up in the morning as well, and just finding someone's passion and then matching that passion with a role. For whatever reason, at a fairly early age, that's kind of where I figured out that's what drove me. And it makes this kind of role, I mean, especially working with consulting, because it's like, TapQA is great and the clients that we have are great, but every client is going to be a little bit different. And we have some clients that may not quite be the right fit for someone, but if we have one that is the right fit, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you know about it and the client knows about it. And as you make that match and you see months down the road, it's just like you're super happy and the client's super happy. That's just that's what drives me. I mean, that's what I love about this role and love about the industry and everything.
That's great. Well, thank you, Kirk, so much for joining us. We had a really wonderful conversation today. I hope you do have a second old fashioned, and I wouldn't be afraid to just try it with brandy, despite the fact that the Metallica whiskey, I'm sure, is fabulous.
Right. No. Like I said, my wife's family is from Wisconsin, so I've had many brandy old fashions over the days and everything. So I don't have a bottle of brandy right now. So I
I
just,
didn't know that was a thing. I have to try it, Jess. That's what you do in Wisconsin?
It's the state drink of Wisconsin, the brandy old fashioned.
Definitely a Wisconsin thing for whatever reason. I mean, my father-in-law was in town this weekend and everything, and he said the same thing. He's just like, this is a great old fashioned, but it's not brandy. So
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Next tipsy testing, I'll have to bring one out.
That's a great idea. I will. Okay, I'm gonna.
We should have the guests do it too. We should all do it.
We can test
And
brandy old fashioned.
and we could test it, right? It'll be testing.
Yep.
no, the brandy old fashioned is great. I mean, it's like I said, I just didn't have a bottle of brandy. I guess I should have. Jessica, had I known you were from Wisconsin, I would have probably invested in brandy before this and everything, just to make sure that I was, part of the family here and everything. But
Maybe we should send in some brandy.
yes, no.
But it would not have generated such fabulous conversation about Metallica. That was a fun
Well, that's true too.
side note. So, Paul, we missed you. Next time, maybe we can gather a slightly bigger group and have a listening party or something.
I'm all for that.
All right. Well, Kirk, again, great to have you. Kirk, for those of you who will be joining us at InflectraCon, Kirk's going to be a speaker there. We would love to have you join us and engage with Kirk and the rest of us at InflectraCon, which, yep, now we're a few weeks out, so I'm going to be plugging that quite a bit.
I got 10 talks to record.
Come to my session. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
It is. It's going to be so great. So thanks
We
a
may
ton.
not talk as much about whiskey and Metallica, but hey, it'll still be good.
We might do a tipsy testing at InflectraCon too.
There you go. Hey, I'm in.
Perfect. Good. Yeah, we can have a reunion.
We can have oh my goodness, have everyone on one giant. Oh, that's a good idea.
That'd be kind of fun.
Yes.
I won't tell.
I heard a Mark head's going to explode if we tell her this.
Yeah. Well, again, Kirk, thanks so much. Great to have you. And we'll see you all next week for our friends from Sauce Labs.
Oh, yeah. That'd be cool.
Dave McNeil and Pat Stevens.
That sounds good.
All right. See you all then.